Rolff, and I want to take you a little bit on a journey. About 6 years ago, there were two guys that went to Hearts Live and Free for the first time, Tim Spalding and Gary Seeley. And after they left Hearts Live and Free for the first time, God awakened their heart like He did a lot of you guys. So they came back and they thought, we just want to hang out with men and really go there. They had been around little white tables, done a lot of Bible studies and things like that, but they had never experienced anything before like they did at Hearts Live and Free. So they slapped some mud on the walls and they created this man cave, if you would, and they just started journeying with men. And as they journeyed with men, it was about a year into it that they actually came up with the name, the Bulls, okay? And the Bulls were basically just guys that said, I'm going to rescue you and I'm going to stand with you and I'll be by your side. And one of their slogans that they have on their back is real men get real and real men experience freedom. So the more real you get, the more freedom you feel. And so as time has gone on, the most amazing thing has happened. About 5 years ago, I came to the Bulls. And I was in a bad place, but I was amazed because I'd been a pastor at that time for 25 years, and I had never seen anything like that before in my life. Because what I saw was there were no Bible studies, there was no preaching, there was nobody trying to fix you, but yet I would see by the power of the Holy Spirit men's lives transformed right in front of me. It would give me goosebumps. And I'll say, how is this working? This shouldn't work like this. I mean, we're not preaching to them. They're not. And week after week, month after month, and year after year, we have seen God do amazing things through this group of ragamuffin men called the Bulls. Matter of fact, I have it documented. They have touched thousands of lives, thousands upon thousands, and there's hundreds of men in the greater Lansing area that have experienced being together with the Bulls. So in my journeys, talking with pastors, talking with other leaders, and we've had a lot of leaders come and sit in, they're always asking me the same question. Why? Why is this happening? And then it's followed up with how. It's followed up, with not only why is it happening, but how is it happening? And the interesting thing is, it's a big paradigm shift. And that's exactly what we see with Hearts Live and Free, right? You guys have already heard this morning. It seems like the more real you get and the more you bring down your defenses, actually the more alive you come. That is a huge paradigm shift. Check out this clip.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on? We can work it out. We can work it out.
The truth about that video when it comes to relationships with their wives is what? We can't fix them, right? We can't fix our wives. We can't tell them what to do. You know, they just want us to listen. We know, and we've talked about men that were wired this way, but I believe that this is how the enemy has actually exploited us and taken us out of the church. Because you want to know what? We think that we can't fix our wives, we're convinced of that, but we think we can fix each other. We do. We can't fix each other. Only God can transform. He's the only one. You know, we even, as guys, we even kind of want to be fixed. We may not say that, but we do. Like, I don't know about you, but when I'm in my desert time too, I don't know if you're like this, but it's like you're praying out to God and you're like, God, just write it in the sky and I'll do it. Because we're doers. So we want to be fixed. And so what often happens in the church and in small groups and Bible studies is we start fixing each other. Well, there's about 6 qualities that I've observed in the bulls that are different than any other men's group that I've been in. I only have enough time to share one with you today. So you're going to have to come back to me. I believe that this one is the most important, not because it's the most important overall. There's other ones that are more important. But the reason I'm sharing this one with you is because I see that it's the most void in churches, amongst church leaders, and even amongst us as men. Okay? It all begins with a story. Now, when I say story, you can kick up the next slide there, I think. We're in a room together, and somebody shares their story. They puke. They talk about their problems. We have seen, you know, the 3 biggies or the 2 biggies are porn and masturbation, and then some type of struggle with my relationship, whether it's a relationship with my wife, a relationship with my kids, a relationship with a coworker, some kind of relationship, or it could be a lot of other things. But I'm going to pick one just for you for an example. We're going to go back to my story 5 years ago, and I'm sitting in the chair in the Bulls room, and I'm ranting and raving about my wife. We've been in a bad spot for 9 months. My wife gave me permission. Matter of fact, I didn't even say this, but she says, you need to tell those guys. You need to tell them I was a bitch with a capital B. That's what she told me to tell you. And actually she was. I just wasn't going to verbalize it. But I'm in this room, this Bulls room, and I'm ripping on my wife. I'm just ripping on my wife. You know, because we all got struggles and problems, and so we talk about the problem. But you know what? It's not the nail in the head. It's never about this. It's always about something else. So one of the things that we do, and I've observed in the Bulls, is we ask heart questions. We go after a man's heart. And some of these may be very obvious to you, but you put them all together, and it's pretty amazing. So the first one is don't ask yes or no questions. We all know that we're not supposed to do this, but yet we do it. So if you're making these notes, next time you're asking questions, remind yourself and look at that, don't ask yes or no questions. I'm going to jump to the third one there. Ask questions that focus on them, not others. So I'm in the room and I'm sitting there and I'm constantly talking about my spouse, my wife. A couple was sitting in our living room this week with my wife and I. First meeting with this couple, we asked them a question. All of a sudden, for 15 minutes, they're complaining, bitching about the other person. Finally, I said to the guy, Aaron, time out. I talk to you and you basically vent about her. I talk to her and you're basically venting about him. I said, Aaron, I'm going to go after your heart. So I needed to ask him questions about him. Not him questions about his wife and his situation, but about him. And then so the questions that we need to ask are Socratic questions. If you email me, I'll send you 3 pages, a list of what Socratic questions look like. But basically, they're what, how, and when questions, not why questions. Why do we not want to ask why questions? Can anybody tell me? When I ask somebody why, or when you think about that, so why are you doing that? Why did you? What? Yeah, it leads to the fix, and it leads to judgment and shame. That's what it is. Every time we do that, so stay away from why questions. Never ask them of men. But what does it look like to ask a what, how, and when question? So you're going after Scott, and Scott's talking about his wife, and it's like, well, time out a minute, Scott. Let me ask you a couple questions. You know, what does it look like for you moments before you're set off with your wife? What's going on? What's going on in your life? What's going on in your heart? How often is this happening to you? You know? When do you find yourself most vulnerable to exploding on your wife, Scott? Those are heart questions, okay? Let's go to the next slide. There's 2 more. Ask non-leading questions. When we ask so often, because we're fixers and we're men, I'm listening to some guy, and again, we see this all the time. We compare notes afterwards. After some guy has been in the chair and he's been talking, everybody sees the nail in the head, you know? And we all want to tell him, but it's like we can't tell him. Only God can show him that. Because, right, it's only God that transforms. So a lot of times there's silence or there's very few questions asked. And I know that when we're asking these, we tend to think, guy, all you need to do is do this and love on your wife. So then we start trying to ask questions that help them see what we want them to see. That's a leading question. And we do that a lot. We do it with our spouses, we do it with our kids, and we do it with each other. This next one, this has probably been the one that has rocked my world the most and has transformed me and so many others that I talk to. Ask questions for their clarification, not for yours. I remember about 3 years ago, we're sitting with 3 couples, and Tim Spalding is one of them with his wife and my wife and another couple, and we're sitting there and we've already journeyed and we're going after each other. And I just got to tell you guys this. A lot of what I've learned, not only from the bulls, when it comes to heart questions, I've observed in Tim Spalding. He doesn't talk about these things because I truly believe it's a natural gift. If you ever want to see what heart questions are like, just spend some time with him and dump some junk. He will go after your heart. So I've observed him and I've asked him questions. He goes, well, I don't know, Scott. I don't know. You know, all those kind of things. So we're sitting there with the 6 of us and he's dumping and we're asking questions. And all of a sudden he's getting a little upset. I'm like, Tim, what's wrong? We're trying to ask you heart questions. He says, no, you're not. You're asking me questions so you can know about your clarification. And I'm like, well, yeah, we're asking about our clarification. He says, well, who the hell made it about you? This is supposed to be about me, and you just hijacked it. You made it about you. You know, and I'm like, whoa. And then he said the most amazing thing. He says, when you ask me questions for clarifications, it's like you think if you know, you can fix me. Whoa. Every time I ask for my clarification, I really am saying, if I know the details, I will be able to fix. That is a bunch of bull. It really is. You have to go after the heart. And you have to ask hard questions. It's amazing how God reveals when that happens. I just got to check my time. You tell me how much time I got.
Sorry, I lost track. The timekeeper lost.
Okay, so, 5 minutes? What? Okay, so this happens in the most amazing things. Now, it happens when you're in the thick of it, and you're absolutely, there's a lot of, sin can be going on and things like that. Matter of fact, after this session, we're going to have a covenant of silence. If God is calling you to go out and spend some time alone, do exactly that. But we also wanted to create it and say, if you need to journey with some men or talk with some men, that's fine. This room will be off limits during your covenant of silence unless you actually want to see this played out. Real life, real time. It's not set up, it's not staged. The guy that's coming up here that I asked last night is going to talk for just briefly about his porn problem. And then we're going to ask heart questions and watch what God does during that covenant of silence. So feel free to stick around here or go whatever God is leading you to do. But it doesn't need to be with a lot of junk. One of our leaders in the Bulls by the name of Brad Berry, just this last week, called me up, and he's been going through a dry patch for 6 months. 9 o'clock at night, there was really no place to meet. We stopped by the hospital to see another guy, and I says, hey, you want to grab a beer? He said, sure. There's this place called the Green Mile. Talk about the dingiest, dumpiest thing. You walk in there, you know the thumpers and the cars next to you. This talking, boom, 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 boom. So we're in there, and we're talking for about 10 minutes. I said, come on, Brad, what's really going on? I started asking heart questions. I didn't know what the issue was. He just started puking, just saying, God's this. I didn't know where to go, so I just kept asking him heart questions. I says, well, where do you think this is coming from? What do you think God's telling you? You know what he said? He said, Scott, I'm sitting here, he says, I'm not surrendering. He says, there's a lot of things that are in my life right now that I don't want to give up. And I says, whoa. I says, you know, what's God showing you? So then he told me. And this thumping's going on. We're sitting at the bar. You know, it's the dingiest place you ever saw. After we're all done, I said, well, Brad, I said, dude, you come from church and a line of churches, and you're practically a pastor yourself. You don't need me to tell you what to do. The old pastor would say, hey, you can pray that prayer when you're at home in bed tonight, or you can do it right now. You know, I said, well, so what's God telling you? He looked at me, tears running out. God, right now. He laid his head down on the bar, at the bar. I put my head around, I had to put my ear against his ear to hear him pray as he just began surrendering his family, his job that pays big bucks, and it was amazing. He prayed and puked. We come up, I'm crying. There's 3 waitresses looking at us like this. They were freaking out. I was like, this is beautiful. I wish I could show you a picture. I took a picture, but I'll have to show it to you later. But, you know, it's an amazing thing to watch God transform lives right in front of you. There it is. I took that right after that in that bar. I said, hang on, buddy, we got to get a snapshot of this. Because he was just flying high. That happened in the course of 20 minutes. You know, it takes a little bit longer when you're in a room. So, bring up the very end. I could tell you stories all day long, amazing stories. You know, I love to give away information. I love to hear stuff that you guys are learning. If you guys got comments, questions, information, help, feel free to just email me, scott@ministrycoachingmd.com. Love to talk with you more, journey with you more. One of the things that we do with the ministry that I'm with is we do Hearts Alive basically for pastors. Our target audience is pastors, helping them to live healthy lives. That's Hearts Alive and Free. Then what we do is we help them create healthy ministries. And that is all about teaching and training and equipping. How do you do this with each other? How do you do this with your spouses? Am I out of time? Otherwise,
1 minute.
I got 1 minute. Perfect. So I shared this thing with a group of pastors right here 3 months ago. We had 22 pastors, 5 different denominations, 12 African American. It was just crazy right here. So we spent heart questions. We talked about it for about an hour and a half, and then we did it up front with us as pastors. So that was 3.5 months ago. Time elapsed. I've seen a lot of them. 2 weeks ago, I sit down with Sean Holland. He says, Scott, 2.5 hours, he talked about how his family is different. Been married 18 years. His relationship with his wife he says, this is amazing. He said, I thought I had an A marriage until I started doing these heart questions. Then I realized I had a D marriage, and now I got an A marriage. His relationship with his 17-year-old, his 15-year-old, and his 12-year-old radically changed. I could go on and on. I'm going to end this with you. This is the last thing I'm going to say. Because this is from my son, Ben, who is now 23, just got married, so this was 4 years ago, 6/11, when I started doing these heart questions with my kids. He texted me, asked me for a picture. I sent it to him. He says, thanks, Dad. My friends wanted to see some of your pictures. I couldn't have asked God for a better father. The way that you've raised me, the experiences that you've given me, the way that you love Mom and you love the Lord, I will never be ashamed or disappointed in you. I can even say that you're my best friend. And I know of no other of my friends that can say that about their father. This happened 1 year after I started going after the heart, the stuff I've learned from you guys and the Bulls and Tim and others. Thanks, guys.
Amen.